Hello.
Hello.
We are off, I think. Yeah, we're good. Okay. How's it going today?
It's good. How you doing? Long time no talk.
I know. It's been a minute since our last
one.
podcast.
Yeah.
I don't think we've done one on Dive Into Discussion, have we?
I can't remember which platform we were on. When I went over to your house and we were talking about the body positivity versus
I
body
think that was
shaming.
story time with Ryan.
Oh, I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was. So, hello.
Hey, yeah. We are in this gorgeous little studio here at Specialty Produce. I feel so professional every time. Every
So
time
fancy.
I'm here. How was your hip hop dance class?
Yeah, so I just got
I
out of a dance
want to hear
class.
about that.
I took it because I'm not good at it. Because it was something I wanted to do. So it was...
Is this like a facing a fear type thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was an intro to hip hop. It was my first class. I have very little rhythm.
Okay.
If there's no pole involved, I can't really dance. I'm alright with the pole dancing part. No, I'm not a stripper, by the way. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Let's
Disclosure.
put that out there.
It's been a while. But I do have a pole in my house.
Yeah.
Which I try to practice on.
Yeah. Were you super stoked to get that?
Yeah. Yeah, because honestly, like I don't miss working in the club at all. That's really damaging with time and whatever. Like, oh, okay, I miss it a tiny bit. But I don't miss the people that are in the club. I miss the performer side. I miss the sport of it. I do like attention, but I like there to be a little bit of like a, okay, you saw me, don't touch, you know. You can't really do that in a club, so.
No, not so much.
But I can do it in my house.
Yeah.
So that's why I like it.
Gotcha. So hip hop dance class, was it awkward as hell, or did you just feel like you felt right?
It was a little awkward.
Was it
But,
awkward?
okay, I felt right in, though, because everybody was a beginner. So
that's a plus.
that was a plus. And there was, like, at one point where I was like, okay, because he was, like, teaching us how to, like, move your shoulders a certain way, and I was like, I got it! And then we moved on to the next thing, and I'm like, dang it, I wanted to do it one more time.
I'm just going to go back and keep doing that.
I know, I'm like, I got the shoulder, because you had to do this, like, infinity thing with your shoulder, and I'm like, what the? And then we did it, and I'm like...
Good times.
Yeah, it was fun.
Are you going to go back?
I am. I think it's a
Nice.
nice little, like, get out of my comfort zone and, like, do something crazy. So crazy.
So crazy.
So crazy.
Yeah. Well, speak of crazy, this...
I'm here. No,
some-
just kidding.
What we were talking about a little bit before this was your issue with your intestines.
My gut.
Your gut health and the lack of being able to figure it out.
Yeah.
How long had that been going on?
Man, so just a little background. Some of the symptoms I have been having are extreme bloating. Like 4 or 5 months pregnant looking bloating. Like hard stomach. Like I can feel the bubbles. I knew that there was gas or something in there, but I didn't know what was causing it. Extreme like tiredness, just feeling like groggy, you know. And
Yeah.
so about a few months before I started feeling symptoms, I had my thyroid removed. I had thyroid cancer, and it was really easy. They just took it out, and I'm fine now. You know, they only took out half of it, so I didn't have to be on medication. And
Shit, I didn't even know that.
yeah, so you can barely see the scar. There's like a little tiny one here. But anyway, so I thought, well, you know, maybe there was something wrong with the thyroid. But I have my blood checked every year, so it was fine, whatever. So this is when the whole journey kind of started, was I started going to my doctor, and I started telling him, like, I look pregnant all the time. Like, I work out, I eat really clean. Like, I don't, maybe there's a food allergy. So he said, well, you know, it might be like cheese, it might be lactose. Well, I don't do dairy, so that's not it, right? Well, it might be nuts. Well, whatever. So I ended up going to actually like a naturopathic sort of doctor. He's actually right up the street from here, and he ordered me a multiple level food sensitivity test. So the common ones: gluten, dairy, fish, nuts, whatever, shellfish, all this kind of stuff. And then like a few other like common for my like female 30s, you know, whatever, white, whatever, like different things that could be more common in different groups.
Yeah.
So I get all of those, and nothing really, I mean, I came up with lactose, but I don't do lactose anyway. So it was like, well, I already knew that. So no gluten allergy, nothing else. I'm like, Okay.
What the hell?
What the hell is going on? So I kind of dismissed it for a little, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to deal with this. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world, but putting on a bikini when you've been working out for 6 months and you expect to see abs and you see a belly is kind of like, it's frustrating. But through the winter months, I would cover it up and, like, just kind of, you know, I was going out less and less and less because it started getting worse. So eventually, I'd say fast forward to about 2 years ago, I went back to my doctor, and because it wasn't happening every day before. It was like once a week, once every 2 weeks.
So this was something that just started out being like, hey.
Hi, I'm here.
And then all of a sudden it's like, hey.
Yes.
Something's going on.
Yeah. So about 2 years ago was when it was every morning. And so one of the doctors had told me, pay attention to what you're eating. I'm like, okay, so I started intermittent fasting. So then I thought, well, if I'm only eating between these hours, if it's a digestive thing, it shouldn't be happening when I'm not eating, right?
Right.
So I was only limiting my food to from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. So 4 hours a day is the only time I was eating.
Damn, you picked a tight window.
I know. Because I wanted to really make sure that, like, because most digestion, especially if you eat high fiber, which I do, is through your body in 24 hours. So, and I don't eat any meat or anything, so there was nothing to, like, slow down my digestion.
Right.
So my thought was, like, okay, the first thing that I eat, if I have some sort of effect from it, maybe that's what's causing it, because most of everything should be out of me from yesterday.
Right.
So, but the problem was I was still waking up bloated. And I'd still be bloated before my first meal when I hadn't eaten for 20 hours.
Wow.
And it was just like, okay, so is it something I'm breathing? Is it like...
Is it me?
Is it me? Am I allergic to myself?
Yeah.
But I went back to my primary care and like... And I, you know, through my own, like, podcasts and stuff, I have a lot of doctor friends. Okay. So I have a gastroenterologist friend, and I have a guy that specializes in weight loss, but he deals a lot with the digestive tract. And I have another friend that's a naturopath. And so I started reaching out to all these people individually because I'm like, I think I'm going crazy.
Good friends to have.
Yeah, like, here's pictures of my stomach, like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And so when I go to my doctor, and he told me... Because he knows my past, which for you guys, like, I was in adult entertainment. I was a stripper, not porn. But, and I've done a lot of modeling, and I've done a lot of, like, stuff that does kind of force you to be perfect or fit this mold, right? Mm-hmm. My doctor knew my history. I told him from the beginning. So his first reaction was kind of using that against me. And he said, well, I think you're so hard on yourself because you're so used to being a performer or these things and comparing yourself to everyone else that...
Is this a doctor trying to be psychoanalytic?
That's what I'm saying. So I said, well, I'm not going to say you're wrong. Like, I could be a little bit hard on myself.
Maybe.
I'll
like,
consider
maybe.
it.
It's
However,
a
and I, like,
possibility.
lift up my shirt, and I'm like, does this fucking look normal?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? So, and I said, well, what's it going to hurt if you refer me? Refer me to a gastroenterologist, refer me to a lady doctor, because at this point, I didn't know.
Oh, because you got to go through the process, too.
Yeah, because the insurance.
I hate that shit, because it's, we got to go here just so they can tell you what you already know, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, and you can't go here without this person because your insurance won't cover it if you do this. And even if you have doctor friends that will prescribe you prescriptions, you can't take them because your insurance didn't approve them. Anyway,
shit show.
So I asked him, I need an appointment with the gastroenterologist and I need an appointment with the lady doctor because at this point, I don't know if it's my guts. I just know it's this area.
Yeah.
So he sends me to both, thankfully, after it was a few appointments before he actually referred me. I'm like, what's the big deal? Like, I don't get it. I go to the lady doctor. We do a pelvic ultrasound and an abdominal ultrasound. So abdominal ultrasound is spleen and down.
Okay.
Pelvic is lady parts.
Okay.
So we do both of those. Nobody calls me with any results. It's been a few months. I call around. Nobody tells me anything. And then all of a sudden, I call again. I called the clinic that did it, the women's specialist clinic. Oh, yeah, it turns out there are a few things that are going on. You have ovarian cysts and potentially gallstones. We're not sure, but there's little black dots on your gallbladder. I'm like, cool, would have been really nice to know.
We're just going to wait until you physically break down and come in and go, yep.
Like, what was the point of the test without telling me?
That was correct.
So, whatever. I kind of thought I had cysts when I was 19. I had them, and I never did anything about them. So I was like, well, it's not much of a shock. So they put you on birth control. It's the best way to manage them. And they tend to go away over some time, which mine did, thankfully. But I'm still having all these crazy symptoms. And the gallstones, like, I looked into it a little bit. They can be a problem. They're not always a problem. Like, that's usually something I think I probably caused with my heavy drug and alcohol use back in the day. It's usually sort of a behavioral, like, not behavioral, it's a consequence of actions, of lifestyle actions, right?
Okay.
So that I probably did to myself. Whatever. So then I finally get the appointment to the gastroenterologist. He's a little overweight, which kind of, I had judgments because I'm like, how are you going to be telling me about my gut health when you obviously eat too much? Like, it was just kind of, you know, I don't mean that in a mean way towards obese people. It was just like, how, like, I'm not going to go to an overweight trainer. I'm not going to go to an overweight doctor. Like, it was just kind of like, how are you going to be telling me?
I worked at GNC when I was carrying around like an extra 50 pounds. It was probably...
See, you're the guy!
It wasn't a good look. I'm like, get this, you know? And they're, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
I just work here.
Work here.
So that was kind of my thought. So I was a little bit judgy when I first saw him, but I'm like, okay, I'll listen to him. So he tells me, oh, and by the way, throughout a lot of this kind of stuff, there was at one point where, let me preface by saying that I don't go to the doctor unless I have to, like emergency room stuff.
Yeah.
I was at work one day, and there was so much bloating. Like, it was so big, and it hurt so bad that I ran out of here, didn't even clock out, and took myself to the ER because it was like, I couldn't even stand up straight. It was like stabbing pain. And I'm like, and I ended up calling, once I got there, I was like, guys, I left. Like, can you clock me out? Like, sorry.
Yeah.
And so then the guy there says, oh, well, you probably have some bacterial overgrowth. It seems like there might be something going on. Okay, we're getting somewhere.
Right.
Cool. But doesn't prescribe me anything, doesn't ask me to follow up with my doctor, doesn't tell me to really do anything, just tells me you might have bacteria. Well, that's not a condition. Bacteria is not a condition. It's not a disease. It's
we are bacteria.
What kind of bacteria? Like, where? Like, what? But, so, you know, I didn't even really look more into it because I just felt defeated, and I was like, okay, whatever. So then I find out later. So this basically, all these things are happening. I'm going to see different doctors. There's different conditions happening. And I've had these few tests now at this point. I finally meet up with my primary again, and I'm like, by the way, like, can we go through my charts a little? Because I remember, so that was the test with the bubbles and the bacteria. That was like 2 years prior. So I'd go to my regular doctor. I'm like, can we look up like some of my recent tests and like see what's going on, like, because so far nobody's told me anything. Oh yeah, by the way, you have gallstones. Oh, that would have been nice to know, which that test was 6 months prior to this appointment. Oh, and that one ER visit you had 2 years ago, yeah, it shows up on here that possibly you could have SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is really, really, really hard to cure.
Oh my god.
And nobody freaking told me about it.
2 years?
2 years, and the only reason was because I asked about it. So going back in time again, before I had this last appointment with this doctor, so one of my friends who's a gastroenterologist, I gave her all of my symptoms and showed her my pictures, and she said, sounds like you have SIBO. And that was the first time I had actually heard about it, even though it was already documented on my file. I just didn't know, but it was the first time I had, like, heard the term.
Wow.
So she says, okay, well, you have to get Xifaxan. There's these two main prescriptions for it. Well, first, there's two kinds of SIBO. There's methane dominant and hydrogen dominant. Basically, they're bacteria that are living in your gut, that bad bacteria that give off gases. Some give off methane, some give off hydrogen. Either way, they bloat you up and make you look pregnant. Okay. Well, that's what I look like. So, Xifaxan is to kill one of them, neomycin is to kill the other. And you're supposed to take them religiously for, I think neomycin was 10 days and Xifaxan was 2 weeks. So, I go on that same appointment with my doctor and I said, I need these drugs. Like, I need these 2 antibiotics. And that's when he tells me, oh, well, I've never heard of this disease before. I don't feel comfortable prescribing it. So, well, I can call my doctor, you know, my friend, my gastroenterologist, and she can tell you all about it if you like.
Your primary.
This is my primary is telling me I don't want to prescribe you. So I said, well, let me put my gastro on the phone and you can talk to her, because she can't prescribe me because she's out of network. So my insurance won't cover it from her. So he says, well, I'm not comfortable doing that because I don't know anything about it. And I said, they're antibiotics, not narcotics. Like, what the hell? So then I call my other doctor friend, and I'm going to keep these names anonymous because I think this is illegal, but call my other doctor friend and I tell him the whole thing. And he says, and he's a pretty well-known doctor in the plant-based community, and he says, well, yeah, you totally, I did the SIBO breath test. through the gastroenterologist, because my regular one wouldn't do it, I came up positive. And I'm like, I have the results. Like, give me the drugs, you know?
Wow.
So then I call this other doctor, the weight loss doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, can you try to prescribe me this? Like, would you be cool prescribing me an antibiotic? Then he said, oh, yeah, that's fine. Like, I can just send it into your, into CVS, and, like, your insurance should just approve it. We could find a loophole. There was, like, a little loophole that we were able to, well, sort of get through. So he sends it in. CVS says, okay. Cool.
Awesome.
Then I go to CVS to pick it up, $2,800 for an antibiotic. One of them was $10.
Oh, man.
The Xifaxan was $2,800
Oh.
for 14 days. So, was that $200 a pill? So I call my friend, my other friend, who works at Sharp, which is my insurance. This has been crazy. And she says, okay, are you comfortable with me viewing your medical records? Anything at this point.
You're like, I will post this shit on the internet if anybody can
these
help
drugs.
me.
Yes, please. So she's like, okay, well, she works for Sharp. She does their medical receiving and billing. So she's like, I can get into these files. I can find out what's going on with Xifaxan and you know what's going on. So this all happened in like December of 2019, so just recently.
Okay.
So then she looks into it and she goes, oh, well, there's pre-authorization that's needed for Xifaxan, which basically means that the doctor has to sign it off and the insurance has to approve the doctor's signature for that condition. So at this point in 2019, Xifaxan was only approved for IBS, not for SIBO. There was no treatment on paper from the FDA saying that Xifaxan treated SIBO, even though it had worked in many, many cases.
Okay. So it was
So
just all
insurance says
anecdotal at that point.
Yeah, well, sort of. There just wasn't, the FDA takes like 4 years, I think, to approve a medication that has like a 20-year trial or something like that, and then they go through a 4-year, like, I don't know, it's something crazy. So it had already worked in tons of cases, the government didn't say it worked. So, whatever. Let's trust these guys, right? So my friend tells me, well, I have some really good news, though. As of January 1st, 2020, there's no more prior authorizations needed for Xifaxan for any sort of bacterial treatment. If you can wait until January 1st, have your doctor post-date the prescription to January 1st, you should be fine.
Huh.
Should be.
Sure.
So I go to CVS on January 1st thinking I'm going to get my prescription. And she says, well, we have one more problem. Your insurance does not cover prescriptions that are this expensive. There's a limit, but we can't tell you how much because we don't know how much the limit is. But there's a limit. So I call my little friend back that works for Sharp, and I say, well, that's bad news. So here's another loophole you guys should kind of pay attention to if this ever happens. She said, pick up half of the prescription. They'll charge you one copay, go back in a week.
Man,
they'll approve the other one.
Fuck all that. Like,
That is the same thing! But it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
Okay.
So I had to pay 2 copays, but I didn't pay $2,800. I paid $20 and $20, so $40.
Yeah.
I do the whole regimen, and this is supposed to be like pretty foolproof, like 90% like success rate with the Xifaxan for SIBO.
Okay.
I felt some things going on. I felt some bubbles. I felt like things were changing a little bit, but I was still bloated. And now I'm on day 14, and I'm still bloated. And I'm like,
Oh my god. After jumping through all those hoops, you're just like, please just
go
work.
away!
Just work. I just need something to work.
and now I'm really starting
Yeah.
to think that my doctor who called me crazy might be right.
Oh god. And then you're just going back like, fuck. Was it me?
Was it? Were you right? And so I'm like, I end up having this next appointment with him with my head down, kind of like, you know what? I know you already think I'm crazy, and maybe you're right, but like, can we still look into this more?
Yeah.
And he basically told me there's nothing I can do for you. He's like, at this point, there's nothing I can do for you. I'm like,
Man.
all right, cool. So, this last appointment, the one where he's telling me there's nothing I can do for you, he says, this is when he tells me about, like, the gallstones and all this stuff, and, like, tells me they're not bad enough for surgery, that's really the only way you can get rid of them, blah, blah, which isn't completely true. I looked some stuff online. You can pass them with certain things you can take, but I don't know enough about it, and I don't even know how bad mine are. And mine were supposed gallstones. We don't even know for sure if they are.
Right.
So I don't even know if
Because
that's
this
an
shit was
issue.
from like 2 years ago, right?
Well,
So
that's what
it's
they
like,
said. It took
what
a
the
really
hell?
long time. Well,
Yeah.
gallstones can take a decade to even develop. So this could have been
Oh,
bad
jeez.
behavior from
Okay,
early
I got
20s.
you. I got you.
Who knows?
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of at this loss now where I'm like, okay, so I haven't taken a retest even to this day for SIBO. So there's one possibility is it was SIBO. The pills didn't work. I need another round, which I did read online happens often, that some people need 2 rounds of the antibiotics, but I never got a retest because the doctor didn't give it to me.
Okay.
The second option is I didn't have SIBO and it was a false positive. Those were really the 2 most common ones. So I'm like, well, looking up false positives, like how often does this happen? Well, the only way that it really happens is if methane and hydrogen are present in the breath test. After you drink this solution that makes... So basically you drink this little solution that's supposed to aggravate the bacteria that you have in your gut. And if you have really high methane or hydrogen levels, at certain point, like you do it, it's like an 8-hour test or 4-hour test. Yeah, it's a 4-hour test. So you do it every hour for 4 hours. Okay. And so it should have a spike. Well, if you have it, it should have a spike.
Because by the time it gets down there, it's going to emit everything.
Exactly. Okay. And then it should slowly go down after that. If you have it. If you don't, you should just have a steady change, really. Okay. So... so the next step was like, okay, well, either I'm going to retake the test or like he won't give me a new prescription. I don't know if I have to jump through these loopholes again, whatever. So last week, now we're fast forwarding to pretty recent. This most recent week on Wednesday, I get a call from not the original gastroenterologist that's my friend that's plant-based, but the gastroenterologist that I visited 2 years ago when I had gut issues. I see it coming in on my phone. I was just going to say his name. I won't say his name. The overweight one. Okay. So it comes in on my phone, and I'm like, what the hell? And I pick up the phone, and he goes, well, I have some kind of bad news. And I'm like, and I'm thinking, I'm excited because you find something. At least I can find a cure, right? Like, if I don't know what's going on, we can't. Oh, yeah. And so I'm like, okay, what's going on? Yeah. And he's like, so, you know that endoscopy you did? So I did this endoscopy about 6 months ago. It's basically this little camera. They put one here and one up the other way, and they scrape things. You're sleeping, so I don't remember any of it, but they scrape things in your gut, and they basically see. It's a really new test. It's God. I wish I had my phone on me. It's a really long medical term that I'm usually pretty good at saying these things, and this one I'm like, what? I think ECD is the acronym, I think, but endoscopic something or another, blah. And apparently I was the only the third person in San Diego to have this procedure. It's like super brand new. It just got approved, like all this kind of stuff, which meant I spent a lot of money on doing it. And all of the procedures that I've had to be under for, like I had a colonoscopy too. Don't ask me why, because I had small intestinal bacteria, not colon, which is your large intestine, but I had a colonoscopy. That was $450 after insurance. This one was $450 after insurance. Damn. The ultrasounds, one of them, apparently women's stuff you get for free. Okay. So the pelvic ultrasound is free, but the abdominal was $250. It was just like, I mean, these are in prescription after prescription.
This shit's adding up.
Thousands of dollars. Yeah. So, and at this point, I'm just burnt out. Like, I'm like to the point where I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going to be bloated forever. Like, I don't know.
This is my life.
This is me. I'm just life. Forever pregnant. Yeah. So, by the way, I've never been pregnant. So, I get a call from the gastroenterologist, and he's like, so we had your endoscopy come back, which my last appointment with my general doctor, I asked him, did you get my results back from the endoscopy? And he said, oh yeah, everything came back normal. Apparently either he never got it or didn't know how to read it, because then he tells me, well, you tested negative. So I had no lactase, the enzyme that breaks down lactose, maltase, which breaks down maltose, or sucrase, which breaks down sucrose. Now, lactose and maltose, lactose is for milk. I don't do any dairy. That doesn't matter. Yeah. Maltose is mostly grains, barley. Think malt. If you think malt, it's like those kind of things. Okay, so no beer, no rice, no... I can deal with that. That kind of sucks, but like, I can deal with that. Sucrose. That's the killer.
The sugar.
The sugar. And everything. It's not just refined cane sugar.
No, it's like shit in fruit.
So that's the funny thing. So fructose is fruit sugar. However, some fruits convert into sucrose in your gut. I don't know the list yet. I know berries are okay, but most of the others are not. Wow. So being a vegan, by the way, so it's no grains, no alcohol.
You're forever just going to be eating salad.
I have basically come to the conclusion.
Forever.
Kale.
That's it.
No potatoes? No, oh, because it's also no starches. So,
oh my.
No beets, because that's where a lot of sugar comes from, is the beets. And so I'm literally now, the only time I really read labels is to see if it's vegan. And now I'm like, so I go home, like this was yesterday.
And curl up in a fetal position and cry?
After I went through my fridge, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I pick up my soy milk. Okay, added sugar. Almond milk, added sugar. Ketchup, sugar. Pasta, sugar. Peanut butter, sugar.
Yeah.
Every single label.
Everything has sugar.
Even my mustard had sugar in it, like cane sugar. I'm like...
It's insane the amount of shit that sugar is in.
Right. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I can play around. So I found this list online of like things I can't have. The list of what I can have is much shorter. But I was thinking, well, okay, so I have a food processor. I cook a lot at home. At least it'll force me to like be super healthy, right? Like I'm going to be eating a lot of greens. And so I'm thinking, well, who cares about the sugar and ketchup? I can make my own ketchup. I'll use dates. Like, dates are amazing sweeteners. No, they're on the can't have list.
I was like, that's very much sugar.
Well, they are, but I thought, well, you know, some of the fruits are okay. Because blueberries are okay, and raspberries
dates are
okay.
high in fiber, so maybe
no.
Not so much.
And so obviously this means, like, no going out ever unless I just want to look pregnant. Like, restaurants. Like, because there's no way I could tell a restaurant, I can't have anything anymore. Unless
do you guys have kale? Just bring me just bring me a plate of kale and 3 lemons.
Maybe a little balsamic. I think I'm allowed to tolerate some of it. So, yeah, I'm kind of... So, okay, so the next question was, well, instead of completely, like, taking everything out of my diet, for people who are lactose intolerant, some take a pill called Lactaid. It's now available over the counter. So I researched that. I'm like, is there a Sucrase? Is there a Maltaid? Is there a... What was the... So CSID is the name of the condition I have. And it's actually from birth, which is interesting. So the name of it is Congenital Sucrase-Isomaltase Deficiency. So you're born with it, but a lot of times you don't have symptoms until you're older.
Awesome.
Sweet mom, thanks. So I'm like, so I start looking into this, like, well, maybe there's like a pill I can take, whatever. So of course, Lactaid is over the counter. Sucrase you can get a prescription for. And
it's only $5,000 a pill.
That's the thing. It's not approved yet by the FDA.
Yeah, so, fuck me, right?
Kale!
It's kale.
It's kale. So
oh my god.
I'm really just trying to figure out what I can eat.
Yeah.
Because I'm even still bloated today and I've been really cautious the last 2 days. But what I decided, I'm going out tonight and I'm going to get hammered. I'm just going to drink all the things and eat all the things I'm not supposed to. I mean, still vegan, but you know, ice cream and shit.
Just know that you're going to wake up tomorrow feeling like
miserable.
Complete shit.
Yeah, and then after that, starting over. And I'm just going to go, like, as clean as I can. Greens and, like, I need a new juicer.
Wow.
So I think I'm going to get a juicer and just do, like, all greens for, like, a week and see what happens.
And then
probably get super
slowly add, like,
one
see
thing
what
at a
you
time.
can add back.
So here's a couple. I've spoken to a few people about this since it's happened. A few doctors and a couple people reached out to me on Instagram because I made the post about it. So that's been the overall consensus: is delete everything you can. Yeah. And with keeping somewhat sanity. Yeah. And then slowly reintroduce one thing. Like, okay, try adding apples. See if that does anything. Okay. You're okay. Now, maybe you're not as sensitive to apples. Now, try adding this. Okay, cool. Now, there's a couple things that go on with this. The one thing is, if you do, like, if I were to do, like, literally kale juice for, like, a month straight, there is a potential that my gut would start to produce its own enzymes again. Potential. Right. Small. But it could start to reproduce some of those things because I'm not putting as many things in my body to digest. It's not working as hard. Like, there's a lot of, like, factors. Right. So that could happen. I could get better, but I have to, like, heal the microbiome first. Yep. And by doing that means I need to pretty much cut out everything processed. Well, I don't really do a lot of processed stuff, but the little things like soy milk. Yeah. Which most oat milks I'm finding now actually are only oats and water. Some of them do have added sugar, but I think Califia Farms is one that... Califia
is awesome.
Yeah, I love them, although their almond milk has added sugar. I just found out yesterday. Yeah, I looked at the label. I was like, no!
Isn't there a no sugar added one?
I think there might be. The one that I had wasn't, but I think there is another version.
Did you have like the vanilla one?
I think so.
Yep.
That's probably why.
Yep. Yeah, they do have an unsweetened one.
Okay, we'll have to check that out. But it's like, man, it's just like learning again, you know? Like,
yeah, and you're just, well, you know, a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel is at least you're starting to get some answers out of this shit after so long.
Right.
You know.
And I'm not crazy, at least in this aspect. But.
Well, it's, you know, one of the parts of this whole thing that, again, we were talking about earlier is like, I know of a person who was given a prescription by a doctor and then started to have all the symptoms that were on the prescription and literally went to the doctor and was like, hey, I'm having all these symptoms.
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh, it's probably something else. And it's just like...
It's literally on the label.
It's like, I get that it's probably annoying for some doctors to get people that think they know it all when they clearly know the answer. But it's also, you gotta... This is why everybody's so pissed. Because of stories like yours.
Like this. And it's ironic that you said that because I've multiple times gone to my doctor and said, I'm not trying to step on your toes. I know you must have X amount of patients come in all the time claiming WebMD answers.
Right.
That don't know shit about the body or health. But one really big difference with me is that I am super fit. I work out. I pay attention to what I eat. I pay attention to my body. I'm not this random person, and I have a ton of resources of doctors that are my friends that I've utilized. Like, this isn't some random, like, oh, I have a tummy ache, it must be cancer. Like, you know.
And you're spending a lot of money trying to figure it the fuck out. Exactly.
And different, like, I went through a couple different, like, cleansing programs, like, all these, like, different kind of things, and I'm like, maybe this will work, and so that's been a little bit of a frustration. And then just for those that are listening that are unaware, doctors are not nutritionists. Doctors go to school.
God, no.
Yeah, they're only required 1 hour of nutritional training to get their PhD.
Yeah.
And that nutritional training is very basic. I mean, you can't cover a lot in an hour. You'll learn more on a YouTube channel or watching a documentary than doctors know on their required time. Doesn't mean some of them don't go out and learn more, but most of them don't.
Correct.
So, doctors...
And I caveat to that, I don't blame them because they're not paid to be nutritionists.
They're not in the business for it.
But also... if you don't know the answer to something, that's okay. Just because you spent a lot of time going to school doesn't mean you should fuck somebody else over just because your ego might take a hit that you don't know the answer to something.
And that's where there's a problem. Because that's been the issue with my doctor is that I swear to God, I have way more nutritional training than him just from the research I've had to do on myself and the podcast I've done with other doctors and like the documentaries I've watched and the you know all the stuff that I've done on my own. That's like when I would talk to him about things, and I try not to step on his toes, I'm like, dude, like, I'm not trying to say I know more than you, but I am trying to say that, like, I'm not just some crazy person coming in. Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. And so, and you gotta remember, too, like, some doctors, I generally think that most doctors are good people. I generally feel that they want to help people.
Yeah. I would hope so.
I would hope that's why they're there.
That's why you're going into the field, right?
Exactly.
Like, you want to help. Yeah.
So I'm not trashing doctors, but it's like especially the Western medical, the United States sort of thought process of medical. The theme is prescribe. That's where the money's at. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. They make money off of prescriptions. And I'm not saying my doctor...
and prescribe.
Exactly. And like, I'm not necessarily saying that, oh, I get a prescription, my doctor makes money. It's sometimes it's like that. It's not always like that. But that's how they stay in business.
Yep.
And so, and then like you were talking about side effects earlier, then they're prescribing other things for side effects instead of just coming to the root of the problem. And this is like where I've learned more about Eastern medicine. And I'm not saying Eastern medicine will solve everything. Like, you guys got problems, go talk to your doctor. But it's, at the same time, like, a lot of times when you put a prescription on something, it's a Band-Aid. It covers the symptoms.
It doesn't it's not a fix.
No.
It'll never be a fix.
No, it just makes you feel better at the time.
Yeah.
It's the diabetes medication, high blood pressure medication, all these things. They're to prevent other issues from happening or prevent you from feeling worse. But if you're dealing with type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, hypertension, all this shit, the root of the problem is you're overweight. Like you need to fix that, and then these other things will slowly go away.
Or shitty diet, because you can have type 2 diabetes
this is true.
without being overweight.
If you're working out enough, but eating cheeseburgers all day. Yeah, very true. So...
yeah, it's... a couple other examples that I can even think of, like right off the top of my head, is when I was sitting in with my dad on one of his doctor's visits when he had cancer. And I'm, I was talking to the doctor, just being like, hey, talking about diet and stuff like that. He had esophageal cancer.
Okay.
One of the reasons that at the time that I had seen that could cause that is when you get like acid reflux, and it and it like stays right there. So it's like where his esophagus entered his stomach, and acid reflux comes from diet. It comes from the food that you're eating. So like, I had already done some research around this. I had already seen that it's like, when they give you that liquid to drink, it's like full of sugar, and what lights up on the screen is cancer. Like, that's how they find it. They're feeding the cancer to see where it is. So cancer's feeding off sugar. And I, had tried to say something to her about that, or ask her about diet, and, candid response, there's really no information out there right now that links diet to this. And I'm just
not in the Western world.
I'm just like...
You're like, actually, I've been doing my own research.
I'm like, all right, that's just special. And then another one, like I know specifically of another person who right now is going through colitis. He's being told it's not diet related at all.
But it's the digestive tract. Like, how can it not? I mean, okay, there's anomalies and there's genetic shit. But
yeah.
So I have an example of that too. My stepdad passed away from colon cancer. Yeah. He was Hawaiian and Japanese. His diet consisted of processed meats, spam. A huge spam.
Spam musubi.
Yeah. Alcohol, the plum wines.
Yep.
A lot of processed food. A lot of meat. Not really quite as much dairy, but a lot of meat.
Yeah.
And spam being one of the huge ones because of how processed it is and how many chemicals. On top of the fact that meat is already inflammatory, but now you're adding all these extra chemicals to it.
Mystery meat in a can.
Exactly. Like, prison meat, right?
Yeah.
But he died of colon cancer. And I remember the same thing going into the doctor. And this was before I was vegan, but I remember thinking, well, it's got to be something he's eating. How do you randomly get butt cancer if, it's stuff's going through your butt? Obviously. And then I remember years later, after I started doing a lot more research on plant-based nutrition, it was like, man, the inflammation, cancer is inflammation.
Yep.
And it's also, it's a accumulation of uncommon cells, abnormal cells. Yeah. And those feed off of a high acidic diet, which meat and dairy are both very high inflammatory and highly acidic. And you eat leafy greens and things, and they have more fiber too. You're eating kale and other vegetables. They're higher in fiber, which means things pass through your system faster.
Yeah.
They're alkaline, which settles some of the stuff. I'm not saying that plants will cure cancer, but they could. Probably your chances of getting it are going to be a lot lower.
I just know how I feel personally when I have more plants in my
diet. Right.
And that's just me personally. I know some people that are on the carnivore diet, and anytime
talk to me in 2 years how you feel.
Yeah. Well, with some people, I've heard accounts of them just trying similar things to what you're trying, is cut out this, cut out that, cut out this, cut out that, and even some high fiber fruits and vegetables they can't even ingest without issues, and then they go to just meat, and then it's all right, let me see what I can add in. And I know those are very few and far in between.
And I understand the frustration, because there's been a couple pretty well-known YouTube and Instagram stars that were vegan and then went non-vegan, and one of them was actually somebody I called a friend at one point, but I'll just say her name because she was open about it, is Ravana. So she had SIBO. Now, she didn't know what it was at the time, but so she got caught on camera eating fish after being raw vegan for this whole time. And the thing was, there was a lot of information that was left out. She also was on a 10-day potato diet, and then said that it was veganism that hurt her diet, but you were only eating potatoes. And she also had eating disorders before, which I'm not clowning, because so did I. Yeah. But there were other factors that weren't really brought up.
Okay.
And there was rumor, I don't know if this part's true, that she was paid for this whole thing to happen because her publicist encouraged it to increase popularity. She got more popular after eating meat than she had ever been before. She was on our local radio station. They were talking, local vegans, not vegan. It's like, makes sense to me. I don't know if that's true, but it makes sense. So there were a lot of factors that played into it. Another one was Tim Sheaf. He is now on the carnivore diet, and he was a hardcore vegan. He even owned a company called Ethics.
Oh, shit. He went from one extreme to another.
A company called Ethics was his company, and then he started eating animals.
Why?
I don't know his whole story. He was never in it for the animals. He was in it for health, and then I think his was kind of some peer pressure too. I guess my point is, like, I've seen a lot of people try things, and I'm not saying that, like, my way is the only way, like, oh, you gotta eat whole food, plant-based. I mean, I do think it's beneficial for most people to eat more plants. I like your statement. I think that's a really good statement, is eat more plants, eat less meat, eat less dairy. I think people would be a lot happier if they did that stuff.
Look at the staple of any diet, and it's plants.
It's supposed to be, except for us.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking about, like, any of these, like, fad
diets
and stuff like that.
True.
Like, that's the one constant thing across all of them.
Even in paleo and even keto, it's higher fat and less carbs. But they're
talking about, like, avocados and, like, nuts and shit like that.
Flax seeds, stuff like that. And that's the thing that people want to go straight to the animal products because those are salty and they're fatty and they're good and they
taste fucking good.
So people go to they want that reassurance that, like, oh, I can still eat a block of cheese here and there, you know? I'm on this keto diet, the whole Costco size.
It's like, I'm gonna hurt myself today.
Anyway, we could do a whole nother podcast on diets, but I guess going back to my whole thing, I don't know, like, with my history, I was born with, obviously with this, but, like, with other things too. I had asthma, I forgot what it was called, meconium aspiration syndrome. It's when you swallow your own crap when you're in the womb still. It basically, instead of going out, it stays in the mother's womb and the baby inhales it. Which
I'm learning so much today.
So many weird things. I was born with a lot of problems. I was in the ICU for a while. Like, I didn't get to go home after birth. And so there was, like, I was really low on the APGAR scale, which measures how healthy the baby is. And it was just, there was a lot of issues from birth. And then on top of that, I did a lot of drugs. I drank a lot of alcohol. I did a lot of emotionally draining things, psychologically draining things. And when I say drugs, I don't mean to clump them all into the same thing. I did a lot of really harmful ones because I think you can have positive experiences with some of them, but I was not in that realm at the time. And so,
and if you want to know, we did a podcast about this on Storytime with Ryan.
This is true. And so the combination of all these kind of things, the bad lifestyle habits, and when I was a stripper, I was eating Carl's Jr. because it was the only thing that was open. And so 4 a.m., you know, getting a double dough or whatever the hell, the $6 bacon cheeseburgers, whatever.
Yeah, that was college for me.
Yeah, so there was a lot of really bad lifestyle choices throughout my years. So I don't know how much of this was like, okay, you were born with it, but, like, then you also did a lot of shitty stuff, so now you're having more problems. Because I didn't start showing symptoms till 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But now it's just kind of figuring out what the hell I'm allowed to eat and, like, where to go from here.
Well, we'll have to do another one of these.
Part 2.
And like,
she's fit.
In like 3 months, be like, did it work? And you're just gonna be like, well, we'll see.
I got my abs back now.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, summer's gonna be here in about 3 months.
Yes, it is.
So let's hope.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this one up.
Yeah. Thanks for those who stuck through this whole thing.
Yeah. Hope you enjoyed it. And that's it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I can help you guys, but that's the goal.
Yeah. See you guys.